Dear viewers, at a very large and very noisy party, you are looking for a friend you have lost in the crowd. You look for her green dress amid the sea of colors. You try to catch the sound of her voice in the general roar. There she is, somehow, above the loud music and noisy conversation. Now you hear her calling your name. The process by which you are able to spot your friend, hear your name despite the noise of the party, and then quickly turn toward and then away from the sound of the breaking glass involved attention. We use the word attention frequently in our day-to-day conversation. During lectures in the classroom, a teacher calls for your attention to what he is saying or what he writes on the blackboard. At a railway station or other public places, announcements start with "Your attention please" before informing the passengers or other people about the schedules of the trains or some other matter of public interest. Attention can never be considered as a force or a faculty of the mind. We must try to understand it in terms of an act, process or a function. Therefore, the use of the term as noun is misleading. It may be better understood as verb like attending or a process involving the act of listening, looking at or concentrating on a topic, object or even for the attainment of a desired result. Let us consider a few definitions provided by eminent authorities in order to understand the proper meaning of this word. According to Ross, attention is a process of getting an object of thought clearly before the mind. According to R.N. Sharma, attention can be defined as a process which compels the individual to select some particular stimulus according to his interest and attitude out of the multiplicity of the stimuli present in the environment. Let us see some of the important psychological theories of attention. The first theory is the selection theory of attention. This theory describes attention as selection among items not yet consciousness, a selection of some to enter consciousness while others remain excluded. Through such selective action of this mental process, a psychological environment is created out of the physiological environment. It is said that reticular activating system, which we call as RAS of the brain, is physiologically responsible for this selection through a process called sensory gating, as RAS filters incoming messages and alerts the higher centers of the brain when important messages are received. The next theory is called as Hebb's theory. This theory considers attention as the activity of the cerebral cortex. Hebb considers attending as an autonomous cerebral process which acts as a reinforcer of sensory process. Reinforced response alone appears for being attended. Though our brain may experience many sensory inputs from different stimuli, it allows only the select response of a particular stimulus get out for being attended. Thus, attending is a process of selection not of stimulus but of response. The next theory is the Broadbent's theory. This theory is based on the present day information theory, stressed stimulus selection as the core of the attentive process. He uses such terms like input, short term store, filter, limited capacity channel and output of the information theory while explaining the basis of attending. Broadbent says that the function of attention is to prevent overloading of the individual's information processing capacity. Attention is a filter interposed between sensory input and processing system. The filter is all or none, admitting the contents of one input channel at a time and completely blocking the remainder, though it can rapidly shift between channels. All the theories agree that in attending, a process of selection takes place. They differ only by how much and at what stage. However, Broadbent's filter model seems to be the more comprehensive interpretation of attention available, though it still has certain deficiencies. Let us now see about the span of attention. Span of attention refers to the number of independent, distinct or separate stimuli that can be attended to by an individual at a glance in a very brief period of time. Span of attention is also known as perceptual span. Sir William Hamilton in 1859 tried to perform the first experiment on the span of attention. For his experiment, he spread out marbles on the ground before his students and concluded that on average the span of visual attention is limited to 6 to 7 marbles. However, if these marbles are arranged in groups or units, we can attend to a greater number of units. Span of visual attention is found out by using a simple apparatus called tachytoscope, which exposes visual material to the subject seated in front of it for a very brief period of time, say 1 second. Cards using the dots of different numbers are used in such experiments, showing one at a time. The maximum number of dots that a person can correctly report on conducting 3 times the experiment denotes his span of attention. This experiment reveals that the adult span of attention is between 6 to 8 for ungrouped dots. This implies that the number of objects that one could attend at any given moment is limited. In using flashcards for recognition, this has to be borne in mind by the teacher. For this reason only, fast moving automobile vehicles are given registered numbers with digits ranging from 4 to 6. Similarly, postal pin code numbers and telephone numbers are also of 6 to 10 digits. Let us now discuss about the shifting of attention. We cannot be continuously attending on any object for more than 10 seconds because attention is characterized by fluctuation. It shifts from one object to another or one aspect of the object to another aspect. For example, when a student is attending to the lesson taught in the class, his attention now and then shifts to events that take place and passes by outside the class, but every time returning to their classroom lesson. Such kind of attention is unavoidable. Fluctuation in attention is explained as due to sensory fatigue, brain fatigue and periodic muscle waves. If a teacher wants his pupils to attend to a subject, he should take care to introduce variety, new points of view, varied illustrations, so that wherever their attention shifts, it would still be related to the subject of instruction. Let us see about division of attention. Attending to more than one act at a time is known as division of attention. In such situations, we will divide our attention towards more than one act. For example, a tailor will be stitching the cloths and also speaking to his customers. We ride a scooter while speaking to our friends. In such activities, the attention is not divided, but it is possible to perform more than one act because either our attention is shifted from one act to another rapidly, or our attention is concentrated on only one act and the remaining activities are carried on automatically. Such activities do not need our attention because these are almost mechanical, but in some technical jobs attention has to be divided to perform more than one act at a time. However, under such circumstances the quality and quantity of the task is affected. This can be proved experimentally by using a division of attention board. Now, let us discuss on the factors of attention. It is true that the attention is a selective activity and volition of our mind is very important to determine our attention. But despite this, there are some factors in the objects as well as in the individual himself which can influence our attention. These factors which determine our attention are divided into two types, namely objective factors and subjective factors. Let us discuss about objective factors. These factors pertain to particular aspects of objects which are inherent in objects. Say movement. A moving object draws our attention more easily than a stationary object. For example, flickering lights draw our attention than non-flickering lights. A moving vehicle draws our attention more than a stationed vehicle. Intensity. More intense light, sound or smell draws our attention more easily than less intense one. For example, a high voltage bulb will be observed quicker than low voltage bulb, very bright color than dim color, or a very loud sound than a normal sound. Novelty. New kinds of objects draw our attention quickly. Advertising agencies adopt this technique very effectively. For example, latest fashion dress, shoes, pen. Size. A bigger or a smaller object draws the attention of people very easily than average level size of any object. For example, taller man, dwarf, a very fat man, a very huge multi-storied building can draw our attention quickly. Change. A change in our environment draws our attention quickly. For example, a regular sound of a moving clock does not draw our attention, but the moment it stops, our attention is diverted. A showpiece placed in a new place, a radio playing a song stops due to electricity failure draws our attention. Repetition. When a stimulus is presented repeatedly, our attention is diverted. For example, repeated horn of a fire brigade or ambulance. Clarity. An object or sound which can be experienced clearly draws our attention than the stimuli which are not clear. For example, during night times, stars and planets which are seen clearly draw our attention. Colors. Colorful objects draw our attention more easily than black or white objects. Contrast. An object that is strikingly different from its background draws our attention. For example, a black spot on a white shirt. Now let us move into subjective factors. These factors refer to individuals. These are inherent in people. There are many subjective factors which determine our attention. They are interest. Objects of our interest draw our attention immediately. For example, while moving on a road, a sportsman is attracted towards the shop where sports materials are placed. A person who is interested in a particular singer will immediately divert his attention the moment he listens his voice. Motives. Motives are powerful forces which make us to divert our attention. For example, a hotel will draw the attention of a hungry person because he has a drive for food. Mental set. Mental set or readiness of mind is very important in attending to any stimulus. For example, when a person is in fantasy, he may not listen to any call. On the other hand, if he is waiting for a phone call eagerly, he will listen to that immediately. Emotional state. Attention is disturbed during emotional state. It also affects our perception. For example, when a person is highly excited due to fear, he may not listen or understand what others say. Habits. Our attention is diverted automatically towards the things to which we are habituated. For example, a smoker remembers smoking even if he is otherwise busy in some work. A person habituated to take food at a particular time remembers food at correct time. Attention of a nurse is automatically diverted towards a serious patient. Now let us see about the kinds of attention. Attention is of three kinds. The first kind is called as voluntary attention. Sometimes an individual will divert his attention towards a particular activity or situation deliberately. It is not diverted spontaneously, but after some struggle. For example, while sitting in a class, the students divert their attention towards the lecture even if it is not interesting, because they have to pass the examination. The second kind is called as involuntary attention. At times, the attention is diverted towards some other activity without the conscious effort, maybe against the will of the individual. This is known as involuntary attention. For example, though the student is listening to a lecture with all interest, some loud sound outside the classroom may draw his attention towards it. The third kind of attention is called as habitual attention. In some situations, reaction to a stimulus or attending to a stimulus becomes a habit. So, the individual will automatically divert his attention towards that stimulus. For example, a musician's attention will automatically be diverted towards the sound of music, even if he is busily engaged in talking to somebody. Attention of a devotee will be diverted towards the temple which he is visiting regularly the moment he passes through that way. Let us see about inattention. Inattention means not paying attention to a particular stimulus or to any stimulus. We do not pay attention to a particular stimulus because we are not interested in it. For example, lack of interest, motivation or need on the part of the individual cause inattention. Let us see about distraction. Distraction refers to attending to irrelevant stimuli that are not part of the main assigned task. A student would like to attend the lecture in the classroom, but he may be distracted because of the noise coming from outside. Distraction results in poor productivity and wastage of energy and often leading to fatigue. Let us see the role of interest and effort in attention. Is there any relation between interest and attention? Yes, interest and attention are interrelated. We are always ready to attend to objects which are of interest to us, and when we undertake a task in which we have more interest, we attend to it with much more involvement. Thus, it could be said, interest is latent attention, attention is interest in action. For example, we take efforts to learn a subject, say mathematics, which at times seems to be tough and uninteresting. We do this because the study of that subject, though not interesting, help us to learn and master another subject, say engineering, of our choice. Let us now see the ways and means of securing better attention in the class. To secure attention of pupils, teacher has to remove certain obstacle to attention. Poor physical conditions of pupil, fatigue, sensory defects interfere with attention. Unhygienic seating, uncomfortable furniture, inadequate lighting also hinder attention. The teacher has to make good use of the objective factors of attention in his class: loud voice, striking diagrams, clear blackboard work, use of colored chalks, varied activities, novel illustrations, a repetition of basic ideas are all of such nature. At the elementary stage, the teacher has to appeal to the involuntary attention by using concrete aids, direct experiences, play activities and appealing to the children's curiosity. At the middle level, teachers can use suitable techniques of motivation by stimulating acquired interest of pupils and their hobbies to evoke voluntary attention and foster sentiments of love for various school subjects and activities. At the adolescent level, voluntary attention has to be evoked by appealing to the long term interest of students and banking on their self regard. During classroom teaching, the teacher has to tell his pupils what to attend to at the stage of introduction itself by providing the overview of the lesson. While explaining a new concept, the teacher should relate it to the previous knowledge of the students and give examples which are familiar to them. The teacher should harness the natural interest of pupils to the class lesson and also create new interests of educational value. Children's interests vary with age, but generally all children are interested in creative, productive, free and lifelike activities. So, there is need for playway methods, projects, discovery approach to teaching and activity based curriculum. Now, let us discuss about the topic association. Association is the general psychological principle linked with the phenomena of recollection or memory. The principle originally stated that the act of remembering or recalling any past experience would also bring to the fore other events or experiences that had become related in one or more specific ways to the experience being remembered. Over time, the application of this principle was expanded to cover almost everything that could happen in mental life except original sensations. As a result, associationism became a theoretical view embracing the whole of psychology. The concept of an association of ideas was first used by English philosopher John Locke in an essay concerning human understanding. Scottish philosopher David Hume maintained in a book titled A Treatise of Human Nature that the essential forms of association were by resemblance, by contiguity in time or place and by cause and effect. In the book The Principles of Psychology, American philosopher and psychologist William James shifted emphasis away from an association of ideas to an association of central nervous processes caused by overlapping or immediately successive stimuli. In 1903, Russian physiologist Ivan P. Pavlov theorized that all behavior could be derived from original and conditioned reflexes. The conditioned reflex theories and many of the behaviorist theories in the early 20th century stemmed from an association psychology of behavior, meaning that they were subject to the same criticisms levied against those doctrines of the association of ideas. American psychologist Edward L. Thorndike, for example, showed that mere repetition does a little or nothing to establish connections between stimulus and response. Some researchers alleged a direct effect of knowledge of results, while others, such as American psychologist Clark Hull in his book Principles of Behavior, produced a complete account of learning based upon need reduction, that is, reducing the strength of the drive linking stimulus and response under various experimental conditions. While these thinkers did not demand the rejection of associationist principles, they did argue for a more conservative application of such principles. There were some, however, such as the Gestalt psychologist, who called for a total rejection of associationism so far as higher mental processes were concerned. Associationist theories, as all embracing explanatory principles in psychology, have received considerable criticism. Currently, very few, if any, psychologists accord these theories the range and power once claimed for them. Many will agree, however, that association remains an important and effective principle that is active in all instances of learning through accumulated experience. Let us discuss about sensory organs and sensation. Sensation is the process that allows our brains to take in information via our 5 senses, which can then be experienced and interpreted by the brain. Sensation occurs thanks to our 5 sensory systems: vision, hearing, taste, smell and touch. Each of these systems maintains unique neural pathways with the brain, which allows them to transfer information from the environment to the brain very rapidly. Without sensation, we will not be able to enjoy the sunny spring day at the park. Let us see what perception is. Perception is a psychological process in which the sensory inputs received from the sense organs are processed, organized and interpreted based on the past experiences of the organism, so that the nature of the stimuli are meaningfully understood. Perception is the process of transforming sensory inputs to which we attend into organized impressions that we experience. Mental interpretation of sensation results in perception. So, perception is equal to sensation plus meaningful interpretation. Let us now discuss on the determinants of perception. Gardner Murphy speaks of the following 4 factors of perception: sensation, nervous structure capable of or sensitive to differences in nature and strength of the sensations, our previous experiences, mental set at the time of experiencing sensations. Let us now discuss the importance of perception. Perception is the first channel of child's learning. Without perception, the child cannot imitate others by observing them. Observation is motivated perception, which forms the basis of all inquiry. Percepts form the first step in our emotional activities as purposeful tasks. Perception is reciprocally related to self-concept. Perceptions from the external world are the basic ingredients from which the concept of self is developed and maintained. Once self-concept develops, its nature determines our perception. Without perception, imagery and imagination are not possible. Perception is related to attending and observing. We perceive only those stimuli that we attend to. Perception helps us to understand the different objects and events in our environment and learn to adapt our reactions towards them. Let us discuss on some errors in perception. Our perception is not always true and accurate. Sometimes errors do creep in our perception when our mind wrongly interprets the sensory input, which is otherwise known as illusion. Illusions are wrong or mistaken perceptions which fall to correspond with the situation as objectively assessed. Illusions arise either because of the ambiguous qualities of what is perceived. For example, during night we mistake a rope lying in the backyard for a snake. Trees appear to be moving around to a passenger of a moving train. Appearance of our stationary train moving slowly when the other train nearby starts moving are all due to illusion. Illusion are of different types: illusion of movements, for example, a spot of light in dark appears to be moving around; illusion of perspectives, for example, two parallel lines appear to meet at a long distance; reversible perspective figures; Muller-Lyer illusion and vertical horizontal illusion; optical illusions. Next, let us see about hallucination. Hallucination is a false perception. It is different from illusion in that it has no sensory basis and it is a dreamlike image often mistaken for perception. For example, the phenomenon of mirage, spotting a ghost on the tamarind tree in the outskirts of a village, hearing the tapping sound of the house door is all due to hallucination. Illusions do have apparent external stimuli, but hallucinations do not have a stimulus object. All experiences illusions, but very few experience hallucinations. The same situation arouses the same illusion in all subjects, but hallucination occur under particular circumstances in different individuals. As prospective teachers, the process of getting your students' attention without getting frustrated and raising your voice is challenging. If you feel helpless sometimes, then you are not alone. In fact, a recent study reveals that 40% of teachers do not even make it through the first year, and one of the top reasons cited is coping with and responding to student behavioral issues. Here are some simple strategies you can pull out of your back pocket whenever you need them. Exercise. Before beginning your lesson, ask your students to stand and join you for 2 minutes of light exercise. You can do jumping jacks, knee bends, twists, stretches or your favorite yoga poses. Anything that spikes the heart rate will do. Studies show that exercise can boost brain function, improve mood and increase learning. I have found that it clears mental clutter and provides the energy boost students need to be at their best. Once they sit back down, your students will be refreshed, rebooted and ready for learning. Use exercise breaks throughout the day and you will notice a difference in your students' attentiveness and performance. Storytelling. Storytelling is a powerful way to introduce lessons. Nothing captures attention as effectively as storytelling. For example, tell a 5-minute story about your first roller coaster ride, and by the time you get to the topic of potential energy, every student will be strapped in and following along. The inherent mystery in stories draws students into whatever world you create for them, and it keeps them there as they transform your descriptions into moving pictures in their head. Stories also provide deeply layered context for students, linking their memories, emotions and viewpoints to your lesson objectives. This makes complex ideas like potential energy easier to understand and remember. Curiosity. This strategy uses curiosity, which all students have in abundance, to entice them to follow along, and it is as easy as it gets. Easy though does not mean less effective. You can use this strategy several times a day and it will never lose its attention attracting luster. The curiosity strategy starts with a promise. I know there are times when teaching can seem overwhelming, when nothing seems to work, when you are tired and stressed, the hours are long, there is always so much to do, but there is a great hope, because beneath the frustration, beneath the gloom and doom roar of the media, beneath the jaded cynicism of some of our colleagues is this quiet fact: there is always a way. Shortcuts, strategies and solutions abound to make teaching easier, faster, less stressful, more effective and a lot more fun. You really can create the class you want. In this lesson, we have discussed about the meaning and definition of attention, factors affecting attention, kinds of attention, meaning of association, perception, its importance and errors in perception are also discussed. Thank you.